At 3 a.m., the lake was so still you could hear the frogs croaking across the water. The wind barely stirred the pines outside our cabin, and the air had that quiet hum country nights get when everything alive has settled in for sleep. I'd been awake for about 20 minutes already, lying in bed, listening to the creaks and groans of the old cabin settle around me. Something had pulled me out of sleep. Not a sound exactly, but a feeling. You don't spend 20 years in the military without learning to trust your instincts. I sat up, slowly. The moonlight filtered through the thin curtain over the bedroom window, painting the wood-paneled walls with pale silver. From the other side of the cabin, I could hear my son moving around. Not unusual. He often stayed up late whenever we came out here, said the quiet helped him think. Tonight, he was cleaning his AR-15, which he kept secured in a hard case and only ever brought out to the cabin. The rifle was legal, properly stored, and handled with the kind of respect that came from good training and a clear head. He was methodical, focused. I trusted him completely. As I stood and slipped on my boots, I noticed something strange, a shadow moving across the front porch. It was quick, but deliberate, like someone trying to stay quiet but not hide. My first thought was a bear, maybe a raccoon looking for scraps. But then I heard the boards of the porch creak under what sounded like human weight. A bear doesn't step like that. And no raccoon tries the front doorknob. My heart rate ticked up, but I stayed calm. I reached for the old .357 I kept locked in the nightstand when we stayed here, loaded it quietly, and moved into the hall. I made no sound. The hallway ran straight to the living room where the front door stood, a thick, solid oak door, original to the cabin, reinforced last summer after a break-in nearby had put us all on edge. I could see a silhouette through the frosted glass pane next to the door. Big man. Ball cap. Something slung over one shoulder, maybe a tool belt, or a bag. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't announcing himself. He was jiggling the knob again, this time harder. Then I heard a muffled voice, like someone muttering to themselves. In the corner of the living room, behind the couch and just out of the line of sight from the door, my son sat cross-legged on the floor with the AR laid out in parts on an old towel. He looked up as I stepped into view, and I gave a quick hand signal to keep quiet. He froze. Then the doorknob stopped rattling. Silence. One long, eerie pause before the wood shook violently with a crash. A boot slammed against it. Once. Twice. Then a voice shouted from outside. Open up. WA security. You're violating code 17.6. Open the damn door. I almost laughed, except my adrenaline was spiking and the man outside just tried to kick my door in. I'd been part of the homeowners association board for years. We had no armed security. No one came around at 3 a.m. for supposed code violations, especially not at the lake, where enforcement was basically a twice-a-year formality. This guy was faking it, and not very well. Worse, he was acting like he had authority, which meant he thought he could intimidate us, or worse, was planning something more violent. I crouched beside my son. His hands were steady, already reassembling the rifle in near silence. He'd done it 100 times. I leaned in and whispered, "Don't fire unless he gets in. I'll handle the rest." He nodded. Another kick. A splintering sound. I moved behind the dining table, tucked low, bracing myself against the wall with my revolver pointed low, toward the base of the door. I didn't want to shoot unless I had no choice. This wasn't the city. There were rules. But if this man got through, and he meant harm, I'd put him down without hesitation. Then, on the fourth or fifth kick, the lock gave way and the door cracked open with a loud splinter. The man shoved it inward and stepped through like he owned the place. He had a flashlight in one hand and something bulky on his hip. Looked like a radio or a tool, but I didn't wait to confirm. I stood up fast and shouted, "Stop right there." He froze. His light swung wildly before catching me square in the chest. I was backlit by the kitchen light I'd flicked on moments before. In the next instant, my son stood too, rifle now fully assembled but lowered, barrel pointed at the floor. The man blinked behind his light. Who the hell are you? I didn't lower my weapon. I live here. This is private property. Who the hell are you? WA Patrol. We got a report of unauthorized occupancy. You're lying, I snapped. The WA doesn't send anyone out here, especially not armed, especially not in the middle of the night. You just broke into my house. That's a felony. His voice shifted, nervous now. I was just checking protocol. You weren't answering the door. You didn't knock, I said. You kicked. And you're leaving. Now. Behind me, my son took one step forward and quietly chambered around. That sound, a clean metallic snap, cut through the air like a whip. The man flinched. Okay, he said quickly, hands up, backing toward the door. Let's not escalate. I must have gotten the wrong address. You sure as hell did, I growled. He turned and half stumbled back onto the porch. I followed him to the doorway but didn't step outside. He moved quickly down the steps, flashlight bouncing, muttering something into a radio or a phone. No car was visible from the cabin window, but I heard an engine turn over about 20 seconds later down the hill near the gravel access road. When the lights faded and the forest fell quiet again, I shut the door, locked what was left of it, and dragged the old oak cabinet in front of it. My hands were still steady, but my heart thumped with the leftover adrenaline. I looked at my son. He was calm, eyes sharp, checking his rifle's safety again before setting it down. That wasn't no WA, he said flatly. No, I agreed. That was a man looking for an easy target. He paused. Think he'll come back? Maybe. But he won't like what he finds if he does. We stayed up the rest of the night. Neither of us spoke much. There was nothing else to say. The lake outside remained still, but something had shifted. The peace we used to find out here had been broken. Now we knew, out here, you don't wait for help. You're the help. Sure, here's an expanded version of part 2 of your story, focusing on character, tension, and narrative flow in approximately 1,000 words. I was still wiping the sleep from my eyes when I heard it, not a knock, but a slam. The kind that vibrates through the floorboards and makes your gut tighten. The kind you don't expect to hear at 3:04 a.m., especially not in the dead quiet of an off-season lakefront. The door burst inward like a kicked-in saloon swing, ricocheting off the entry wall with a crack that echoed through the cabin. The sharp cold from outside rushed in with it, bringing with it the figure of a man. Average build, mid-40s maybe, wearing a cheap tactical vest over a tucked-in polo shirt. His jeans were tucked into black boots that didn't match the rest of his wannabe uniform. He had a flashlight in one hand, a clipboard in the other, and some kind of badge clipped to his belt. Not a real badge, not anything you'd see on a cop or even a rent-a-cop. It looked more like something out of a Halloween store, flimsy plastic with the letters, WA Patrol, emblazoned across it like it meant something. What the hell do you think you're doing? I barked, half out of bed and already charging toward the living room. I didn't need to raise my voice much. The tone said it all. But I wasn't the first person he saw. That honor went to my son, Ethan. Ethan had been sitting just behind the entryway, in the chair angled toward the fireplace. He's a quiet kid, early 20s, with that laid-back temperament that sometimes hides just how observant he is. We'd been bonding earlier that evening, cleaning firearms together, something we do maybe once a season, just to keep everything in order. He'd taken a liking to one of the AR-15s, black with a tan grip, something he'd built from a parts kit and tuned with precision. He was oiling the bolt carrier when the door came flying in. The guy didn't even register Ethan at first, just stepped inside like he owned the place and started scanning with his flashlight. I've had multiple complaints about code violations, he began, before freezing mid-sentence as his flashlight beam landed directly on the glint of the rifle in Ethan's lap. Ethan didn't stand up. He didn't point the rifle. He didn't say a word. He just looked up, calm, steady, unsmiling, and rested one hand on the rifle's lower receiver. Not in a threatening way. Not even in a defensive one. It was casual, but clear. I'm not hiding anything, and I'm not afraid of you. The flashlight flickered as the man's grip went slack. His eyes darted from Ethan's face to the weapon, then back again. You could see it in his posture. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd come in loud, hoping to scare someone. Instead, he found a young man calmly maintaining a military-style rifle in a rocking chair like he was polishing a fishing rod. Sir, this is private property, the man stammered, trying to regain footing. There are guidelines, noise ordinances, unauthorized outbuildings. What guidelines? I asked, stepping in. We don't even have an HOA out here. The guy turned toward me, his clipboard now clutched like a shield. There's a community charter, he said, stumbling over the words like he'd memorized them from some printout he barely understood. Residents are expected to maintain standards. I've received reports of firearms, unsafe structures. You broke into my home, I said, cutting him off. That's felony trespass at best. Home invasion if a DA's feeling spicy. Door was unlocked, he shot back, though his voice lacked any real conviction now. It was locked until you kicked it in. Ethan stood then, slow and deliberate, and set the AR down gently on the table next to him. He walked over to me, still calm, eyes fixed on the intruder. Want me to call Sheriff Larkin? He asked. Bet he'd love to know someone's playing mall cop out here at 3 in the damn morning. The man's bravado was leaking fast. His eyes flicked toward the door like he was measuring the distance. I stepped aside and gestured toward the exit. You've got 10 seconds, I said. After that, it's my turn to get loud. He backed out, muttering something about misunderstandings and just doing his duty. His flashlight bobbed erratically as he stumbled into the yard, turning to look back only once, right before Ethan stepped outside after him, arms crossed, backlit by the porch light. Don't come back here, Ethan said quietly. And don't ever kick in someone's door again. Next time you might find someone less patient. The man didn't answer. Just shuffled to his vehicle, a faded red pickup with magnetic decals slapped on the side, HOA neighborhood watch. Not affiliated with anything official. No legal jurisdiction. Just some guy playing pretend. He drove off, tires spinning in the gravel. By the time I stepped outside, the taillights had vanished beyond the tree line. Inside, we locked the door, really locked it this time, with the deadbolt, the chain, and the bar we kept for bad weather. Ethan went back to cleaning, unbothered. I sat on the edge of the couch, pulse still racing, thinking about how things could have gone differently. Because here's the thing, if Ethan had flinched, or if that guy had panicked, this could have been a different story. Headlines. Sirens. A whole mess of lawyers. But instead, it was just bizarre. A man with no real authority, acting on imaginary rules, inserting himself into a place where he didn't belong. And we were lucky. Lucky Ethan kept his cool. Lucky no one was hurt. Still, I couldn't shake it. The nerve it took to come in like that. The arrogance. The blind belief that he was doing the right thing, even as he broke the law. But we didn't call the sheriff. Not yet. We figured word would get around. These little communities always talk. And if it didn't stop, if he came back, well, next time we'd be ready in a different way. Documentation. Video. A legal response. Because when someone crosses the line between concerned citizen and unstable vigilante, it stops being a misunderstanding and starts being a threat. And threats. We don't tolerate those out here.